one and a half. You know, so I think to me, a community is a space where everybody's existence, their who they are, is not like there is no question about their humanity. That's community to me.
Community to me is, I don't know, just like BTR. BTR, Michael's house. Yes.
Black Trans Revolution, in case folks, but the acronym BTR is Black Trans Revolution.
It's amazing. That's the community. Philly Trans Health Conference. Yeah, you know. that was community to me. Like being around people who look like me, who talk like me, who act like me, who is me. That's it.
Community to me is.
So we're asking y'all, what's your vision for community and how will you get there?
Well, it's just hard because there's no spaces. Like I heard, there's no like black owned spaces or things like that. So, I mean, it takes money, I guess, to have these spaces. So, there is only one bar or club that I can go to that I really feel comfortable in. It's from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. on a Saturday. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the only thing that we have. So I really don't know. I mean, there is a community, so unless I'm creating the events myself, like 80% of the stuff I go to, I created myself. So it's like, what am I going to do? I go to Cruise and Images where you can't even wear baggy pants and hats.
Right.
So I don't think.
What's your head? Community to me, I would say community to me means family. You know, community, you stand up for each other, you ride for each other, you're there for each other. And I would say, like, I really haven't experienced community too much other than ballroom. But I wouldn't say I've experienced community like outside of that until like maybe this year. Like I can make a Facebook post like I'm down and Michael or Joy is immediately in my inbox like, well, what can we do to help you? What's going on? Like to me, that's community. People who uplift each other and are there for each other. And I mean, how do we get that? I mean, I think it starts here. I mean, everybody's here. I see people of different ethnicities, races, all here. So I mean, I think we're building community now. So
Yeah.
Well, also thanks everyone, because I do feel like really great being here in this community, and I just think the community is really important to care for each other and being able to provide for really just basic human rights that everyone deserves. Like Becca's the shirt says so well, but even that, it's like, it's stuff that we should never have to even say, because that should be the norm, should be obvious.
Yeah.
And it's common sense. And on top of that, it's just like people should have access to everything that they need to just live and be happy or be the person that they want to be, So whether that means helping each other to, access that, or, is there an elected official in Pittsburgh who could help provide that community? I don't see that right now, but like, could that become our reality? I hope so.
I mean, I like to echo like Nancy's acceptance and like a feeling of like safety and like solidarity. But like the creation of that is difficult because community has different layers of of people who come from many experiences, privileges. And I think like one important thing with the community is even when one member like messes up, their ability to change and better themselves and like able to change their opinions and grow as together and protection of these people that are underprivileged. I think actually creating these communities is difficult and hard for many reasons. One, these communities are not supposed to exist. By having these existence, like as we said before in the first question and answer thing, it's like a form of like rebellion or protest where solidarity is a threat to the system set up to bring it down. So that makes it hard for there to be safe places, or economically is probably the most difficult part, but also transportation. Who are we going to reach out to? How do we reach these people? Not everyone can just like travel to like the other end of the city, especially that other end of the city is in like a rich white neighborhood. It's not safe.
Right.
So I think there's like many things we have to address with community and how we can make it accessible to everyone. And like the realities of it's hard to do that when you're at the bottom.
So we're going to be transitioning into our community report back and into a Q&A for you all. But I just want you, when you were speaking, TJ, you reminded me when Lucille Clifton, she says, you know, won't you celebrate with me? Every day something has tried to kill me.
Yes.
We are here. And it might be really hard days, but we are still so triumphant, and that is powerful. And so our existence is resistance, and it's so important for us to remember that even if we're having challenging times, that when we show up and we show out, that is a strong showing of resistance. And so we're gonna be riding with y'all all weekend long, but also all year long, because this is the beginning, right? Of a very important conversation and very important work. So I'm going to invite Michael and Joy to give a report back from the Delta meeting that we had on Tuesday. And after that, we'll transition into more dialogue with,
We have a smoke
with
ring.
everyone. Is that? No. How is that for everyone? Good? Okay, so
You hold
there you
yourself
are.
into the back. This would
I guess I don't really know how to. I'm not really sure how to even start off talking about the Delta meeting. I guess after about 2.5 weeks of challenging Delta, especially through social media, they decided to host a conversation that they are now calling Diversity and Respect Campaign. They're in partnership with the Diversity and Respect Campaign from UPMC, who is going to be helping them facilitate these conversations amongst community members. Joy and I were not invited to that meeting initially, so there were some rumblings in the community, and so we found out about it. Joy was, I think, invited late.
Late the night before the
Yeah, the night before the meeting, she was invited. So the meeting was 2.5 hours, and
trauma.
it was. And I feel like we should define that at some point while we're saying violence, and I'm sure that we will as we get into the conversation. But it was 2.5 hours, and it was facilitated by two folks who I think really tried to make sure that everybody got a chance to speak. The folks who were in the room, feel like that was fair, who were in the Delta meeting. Yeah, right. So they tried to make sure that everybody got a chance to speak. But we were talking about, in my opinion, that's just my report back. In my opinion, I think we were talking a lot about solutions and how to move forward. without addressing anything that actually happened.
Yes.
It was like, we're just gonna talk as if like there weren't specific things that occurred. So there were, I think, a few times in the space where folks brought up things that specifically happened and asked for particular folks who were in the room to speak, and namely the two folks from the Delta Foundation who decided to host this meeting, but really said nothing at all. In fact, like passed a question. One of them
Said the same answer to the question, said the same exact answer in 5 different ways every
Yeah.
time the question was asked, every time the question was just.
I mean, there were very specific questions, right? Like one of the questions was, what have you learned tonight?
A lot.
And the answer was, we
A
talked
lot.
about a lot tonight. You're like, so, right, like, so the 2.5 hours of free labor that we just gave you by coming to this meeting, right? Accountability is a gift, right? So we're holding you accountable. In that accountability, you did not hold yourself accountable at all. You have not intentionally listened in this conversation. And that's how I felt. So for those of you who saw the news, I will talk about that briefly. I mean, I kind of feel like it has to be addressed. So there were some emotional times in the meeting. And I think that a lot of times, and Joy and I talked about this, but a lot of times, especially as people of color, we're not allowed to show emotionality, right? There's no space for us to be emotional. And I think that as long as I've been doing community work, when I am emotional, it's either I'm angry or I'm callous. Those are my 2 options. And so I got pretty emotional and said some things that I felt like I needed to say for a long time. And I walked out of the meeting because I felt like it was too heated. I didn't want to say anything else that would make it worse. So I left and I came back. I did come back. So I think that there was just a lot of feelings that came out, and I don't feel like it really got anywhere. I don't feel like there were any resolutions. I don't feel like there really was even an opportunity for resolutions. Like when you have that much pain and trauma, it's not going to get solved in 2 hours or 2.5 hours. We went over a little bit. Oh, so yes, the demands. So the demands were that Delta Foundation was supposed to report to us a breakdown of where their funding was going. Programmatic expenses, not your $990 that's online that just has $600,000 to other expenses, not your right? We asked for the most recent as well, all the way through 2014. And the other part of that was that it was like the audit, they offered the audit. The audit is again a blank, like it's a document that just says other expenses. And it may even say like, I don't even know what it said. I think it said like salary. And it was like $60,000, but like how is that broken down? Who is that going to? How much money are you actually spending on Pride Fest?
We specifically asked for how you are serving queer and trans people of color
Yes.
in this community. We specifically asked for that. And the reason for it is, again, because you can't claim to be the leading organization in Western Pennsylvania for the LGBT community and not know how you're providing resources for those people in the community.
Yeah. One of the things that came up over the last several weeks is that Delta Foundation said they gave $75,000 over 7 years. And we know that they spend close to $500,000 on Pride every year. So that doesn't make sense, right? So we asked for a breakdown of who they gave money to and how much. We did receive an email. The deadline was noon. We received an email at 2:55 p.m. From Chris Bryan, and it was the $990 and the audits.
And it's also important to note that they did state in the meeting that Pride in the Street is a fundraiser for Pride Fest.
For the whole Pride Fest.
Yeah, for Pride Fest, and that is their biggest expense. That's the biggest amount of money is for them to fundraise. for projects, like that's what they do.
So, yeah,
That's all they
that's all they do. So they were supposed to send the audit and, or the
So are they
full breakdown. They
organization
sent
for-
audit leading up to 2012. There was none for 2013 was there? 2013, sorry. So there wasn't one for 2014, and there was a 990 up through 2013. So that's what we got. You didn't respond. I didn't respond. That's where we are.
Gonna raise hell.
So what would they?
Accountability, they're gonna have to do it up.
They just didn't listen to the complaints.
And he heard the question.
But I think it's
Yeah.
important.
He heard the question.
Oh yeah.
He knew what we were.
Absolutely. So let me be clear that we said this several times. It went, like, we had to
You
go
did not
over
write
it
it down.
multiple times. The facilitators repeated it. Like, it wasn't
It was
just.
written on the board.
Right.
It was rephrased.
Yeah.
Wrote it down, put it back together.
And we said not the 990 or the audit.
Right.
So.
Right.
Very clear.
But I do want to say that I think it's important to note, if we're going to go down in history
Yeah.
correctly,
Yeah.
that actually Delta didn't call the meeting. It was called by a person who works the Dignity and Respect campaign.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I say that not to say that that makes it any better or to absolve responsibility, but